All right, so this is what we have going on here. We have two 1/2-inch poly B lines coming off the 3/4 inch copper. Comes across here and droops beautifully. Gotta love that. Goes up through the floor into the kitchen cabinet. This will feed the kitchen faucet. The hot line will tee off to the dishwasher. And what I want to do is cut all these lines out, including these shutoffs that go nowhere, and cut it right back here. So cut it here, add a 3/4 inch copper by 3/4 inch PEX adapter. Run along here in 3/4 inch PEX to about this point where I'll add 2 takeoffs, because I may add a outside hose bib at some point at this side of the house. But there's also a drain down here that I may hook up at some point as well. So I'll take you upstairs, show you what's going on under the kitchen sink, and then we'll go from there. Under the kitchen sink here, I'm going to cut out these shutoffs, replace them with 1/4 turn ball valves, and then also the water supply line to the dishwasher as well. So guys, before we get started, I just wanted to show you some of the do's and don'ts and best plumbing practices. You never want to install a valve in this position where the stem or handle is facing straight down. The reason being is that there is a seat up here where when the valve closes, it closes against it, and when it's in this orientation, sediment and debris can land on that, and then when you go to close it, it'll actually damage the seat and may never actually seal properly again. So you want to install these valves either in the horizontal position or straight up, like those ones are there. Second is explaining this gray tubing up here. As I referred to before, it's poly B. It's basically a water supply line just like PEX, but had a lot of issues with it. So there was a bunch of class action lawsuits against the manufacturer of this tubing. What would happen is it would get brittle, it could crack, and cause a ton of damage. So you might ask yourself, why would a plumber knowingly purchase a home with poly B in it? And one, the home was a really good deal, and two, all the poly B is exposed, so it's easily replaced. So this is one section we'll just be replacing today. Third is just a little tip here, and if you have copper lines in your home and you're ever wondering which side is the hot and which side is the cold without having to run the water and going up and feeling each line, is that, okay, this one here with the insulation on is going to be the hot, but just looking at it, the hot line is always going to be shinier than the cold line. It's kind of an interesting little fact. So I'm just going to go shut off the water now, cut this all out, and we'll get going. I'm starting with shutting off the main water supply to the home and relieving the pressure off the system by opening a faucet. Next is disconnecting the kitchen faucet supply lines and dishwasher line. Before working under the dishwasher, make sure to shut off the power at the appropriate breaker. I'm connecting the dishwasher with a 3/8 braided water supply. I'm preparing the copper lines for the copper to PEX adapters. If you need a refresher on the best soldering practices, feel free to watch my how-to soldering video. Alright guys, before I get started soldering here, I just want to talk safety. The minimum I recommend are gloves and safety glasses, especially if you're working above your head. Safety glasses are so important. I'll give you a quick little story. I was on a job, trying to get it done quick, and I was pretty much in the exact same scenario. I had a bucket of water up here, working above my head, no safety glasses on, and I was soldering away. A piece of the solder drops into the bucket, splatters, and some of that solder landed right on my eyeball. So I had to go to the ER. They ended up removing the solder. Luckily, no permanent damage. But the moral of the story is wear your damn safety glasses. I'm also looking up here, and this paper backing for the insulation looks extremely flammable. So you're always looking around, what is the flame actually going to be hitting? Am I going to cause a fire? Do I have a fire extinguisher close by? So what I'm going to do is put a piece of tin up here, just to give it kind of a break or a heat barrier, and then I'll do the solder joint. So let's get started. All right, before we get started, let's just talk a little bit about PEX 101. Now there's a difference between Poly-B and PEX fittings. This is a Poly-B to PEX adapter. You can tell the difference is Poly-B will have 3 rings on the inside here, 1, 2, 3, and PEX will have 2, 1, 2. So they aren't interchangeable, and you want to use the correct fitting for the correct piping. The rings are also different. If the ring is copper colored, it has to be labeled PEX to be used on crimp PEX. If it is not labeled, then it's actually a Poly-B ring. This is a Poly-B ring right here, no labeling, and copper color. Now if you have a ring like this where it's black, this is crimp PEX. It doesn't have to be labeled, and it is actually copper, it's just the coloring. Now to get a perfect connection, the first step is having a nice, clean, straight cut. So instead of squeezing down on your cutters, which usually will cause the cut to be on an angle, what you want to do is roll the cutters down. By doing that, you're going to get a nice, straight, clean cut. Next is installing the ring. You usually want about 1/8 of an inch of tubing past the ring, and then you insert your fitting as far in as possible. The reason you want that 1/8 of an inch is the ring will then crimp on the 2 ridges. So get your crimpers ready here. You want the jaws as straight as possible. Squeeze just down just once. Release the crimpers. And then inspect the ring. Make sure it's nice and straight. And that's crimped properly. Now most crimpers are going to come with a gauge like this. This is called a go, no go. So this is for your 3/8, 1/2 inch, and 3/4. This is 1/2 inch here. So what these want to do is you want the ring to pass on the go and not pass on the no-go. So we slide the go over, slides over perfectly, go over the no-go, it won't slide over. So this is a correct crimp joint. It's not over crimped, and if it was, it would go over the no-go, and if it was under crimped, it would not go on the go. So if you find you're not getting enough compression on the rings and it's not passing the go, no-go gauge, then you can actually adjust the level of compression on your crimpers. So this line here from factory is going to be aimed at 0, so this one's never been adjusted. And as your jaws wear, you can increase the compression. So the higher the number, the more the ring is compressed. So your next adjustment is 1, and then goes 2, 3, 4, 5. And the way that works is this C-clip pops out, this pin will lift up, you spin it to 1 or the next level, reinsert the pin, install the C-clip, and then recrimp a joint, test it with your no-go gauge, and if you need to increase the compression even more, you can, and just go from there. So I just crimped a few joints here that wouldn't pass inspection and what to look out for when you're crimping PEX. The first being is there's way too big of a gap here where the crimp ring is actually compressed and you're only catching the end of the fitting and is not a solid connection. This one here has no gap. It will probably seal, but is not a strong connection because you're not catching the 2 ridges here in the fitting. This one here is an example of cutting the tubing on an angle, and the fitting is now not fully inserted into the tubing, so also a poor connection. This one here can be a little bit harder to catch, but it's when the jaws of the crimper are on an angle when you're compressing the ring. So as you look, as I spin it here, the ring is deformed, and this is not a strong connection, and you would want to cut it out and replace it. And this is the scenario you'll probably run into the most, is when the fitting actually pulls away from the tubing when you crimp the joint. And you want to avoid this as well. I'm just pre-building my future takeoffs as it's always easier to crimp at table height. Next, I'm installing quarter turn ball valves for the hot and cold faucet supply and the hot dishwasher supply. Open the main water supply partially so that the system fills slowly. Keep the faucet open until there's no air present. Then close the faucet and open the main water supply fully. Check for leaks at all your connections. Well guys, thanks for watching, and like always, if this video helped you out, liking, commenting, subscribing is always greatly appreciated. Till next time.